Hello everyone, my name is Loner, and if you're watching this you probably know me from Twitter, although you might have been referred here through somebody else. This is a discussion on the shooting of Philando Castile by one officer, Geronimo Yanez, as well as a further discussion and a interlude into the Black Lives Matter movement. I must say before getting into this that this in no way is meant to defile or change the memory of Philando Castile, as I understand it, and from the research I've gathered amongst his community members and his family, his friends. He was a very good man, and I would not want to do anything to tarnish his reputation. Also, this video is not meant to be an argumentative point. This is merely meant to be informative. A lot of people will try and argue and debate over this and say, well, you're wrong, and you're wrong, and you're wrong, and at the end of the day, I think it's a lot more important to realize that people die over this, and that it's very serious, and that it's far more important that people remain informed, even if an individual, you yourself perhaps watching this, are wrong, that you properly inform people, rather than trying to perpetuate something to make yourself feel better. People can die over this. That's important to remember. All of that said, we are now going to get into this. With a grain of salt, I will say, please take everything here with a grain of salt. So, Philando Castile was pulled over by one or two officers because of a not properly functioning taillight. It's said in the video by his girlfriend that they were pulled over for a busted taillight. Obviously, a very routine stop. If we can go over here, and I'm going to show you a video by the Young Turks because I could not actually find the original footage anywhere where it didn't, it wasn't messed with and it wouldn't show up correctly. So, the Young Turks, by the way, did a horrible job covering this. I'm not trying to plug myself, but went into absolutely no journalistic exercise whatsoever. So we're now going to watch this, and I will commentate. I'm going to pause it about halfway through, and we'll watch the rest of the clip.
Stay with me. We got pulled over for a busted tail light in the back, and the police he's covered. He ain't killed my boyfriend. He's licensed. He's licensed to carry. He was trying to get out his ID and his wallet out his pocket, and he let the officer know that he had a firearm and he was reaching for his wallet, and the officer just shot him in his arm. We're waiting for a back. I will, sir. No worries. I will.
Okay. We can now hear how distressed this officer is. This is very important to realize because it's very telling as to the situation this officer is now in. A lot of people instantaneously will demonize these officers for doing these things, even if they're at fault. Which, it is fair that that officer receives reprimandations. A mistake is a mistake, but a mistake that concerns someone's life should never be made. This officer is horrifically distressed. Guilty or not, somebody has just died because of him. It is mentioned in this article by Blue Lives Matter, obviously going to be a very biased source, but we're going to go into a counterpoint on that later, so again, with a grain of salt, everything. It's mentioned that the officer believed, Officer Yanez, had previous experience with him, and that the officer believed that he was previously, Mr. Castile, was previously involved in a robbery. Now, I'm not going to be covering that point here, but I will make the point of saying it that, that an officer in a situation is only going to be using lethal force when they fear for their own safety or the safety of the general public. The officer here may very well have feared for his own safety because of a believed prior knowledge, not exactuating, because He's not been convicted for any of those crimes. For a believed prior knowledge of this individual being involved in a violent crime. And that's a fair point to make. However, I will not be discussing it any further than that. So, Mr. Castile was pulled over by Officer Yanez. Officer Yanez asked Mr. Castile, I apologize, asked Mr. Castile to, the obvious, I'm sure everybody's seen a traffic stop, license, registration, all of that. Mr. Castile informed the officer that he is a license to carry and that he has a firearm. Completely fine. Absolutely fine. He did not need to do that. In the state laws where he lives, where this altercation took place, you do not need to disclose that. It's considered a nicety to do such a thing to an officer. If I were to ever be pulled over while concealed carrying, I would certainly do it. But a very important distinction has to be made here. Inform the officer, concealed carry. I have a gun. Yes. Okay, I need your license and registration. And here's where a very important distinction comes in. This is the Star Tribune, and the highlighted text here is in a line of a quotation. You can see it starts there to there. The highlighted text here is very, very important. This is a direct quotation from his girlfriend, the woman who was videotaping beforehand, who we just saw. The officer said, "Don't move." As he was putting his hands back up, the officer shot him in the arm 4 or 5 times, end quote. The important part there is putting his hands back up. That small motion, that extremely small motion, can be deadly. And in retrospect, I know a lot of people will say, well, he was putting his hands up. How could somebody putting their hands up be shot? Well, it's different. You're taking it out of context. Allow me to demonstrate with this great video, great, amazing video by one Kuluk01. All of these will be linked in the description. I recommend you go watch the full version of this. You can go watch the full version of the Young Turks video. It's a Young Turks video. Yeah. But I do highly recommend you go watch the full version of this. It's very informative. Anybody who concealed carries, anybody who regularly deals with police officers, it's really important that you watch this, I think.
This is going to cost me money. I don't know what to do. The officer comes up and says, let me see your proof of insurance and ID. You reach like this in your back pocket. Now, understand, the officer can't see anything you're doing from over this way. The passenger can see what you're doing. The passenger knows where it is. How hard is it to get that wallet out of your pocket? Finally get that wallet out of there and bring this up like this. And at this point, you say, oh, officer, I have a gun. And he says, stop moving. And you say, I have a gun. Let me...
Those 2 words are very important. Because stop moving, when you're talking to a police officer, means stop moving. It does not mean put your hands up.
Get my permit out. What is that officer going to do? Can he see what you're doing? He can't see anything that you're doing right now. And that puts you in a very, very bad situation. Because that officer doesn't know what you're doing. All he knows is you have a gun. And he has to make a judgment call. Are you going to try to pull out a gun? Or are you just trying to get at your wallet to bring out the wallet like this to show him? That is how you do not handle an interaction with an officer. We're going to run a few more scenarios here and give you a little bit of an idea of what can happen and what can go wrong.
Now, before this next one goes down, I will say that if you've seen this video previously, you know what's about to happen. If you have not, try and put yourself in the position of this officer. This is where a police officer would be standing over your left shoulder, right shoulder, if you're in a country where right-hand drive cars are normal. This is what the officer would see. Okay? Take away that filter of hindsight that you have, that filter of, oh, well, he was trying to put his hands up. try and remove that. You guys will be very rewarding in understanding this.
All right, same scenario again. You were pulled over. Now the officer comes up and asks you for identification. You say, yes, officer, it's right over here. You go to get it, and you go to pull it out, and the officer can't see what you're doing, and
That quickly. That's all it takes. And that was a sloppy draw. He went over his hand, he could have gone under his arm. He could have easily gotten off the shot faster than that. This is why police are scared. Because in this situation, you can die. While I almost never, I've had many of negative altercations with police officers, I, in this case, say proper coordination with a police officer is not the best, but the only way to go about this. If it's concealed carry, keep it concealed, unless the laws in your state require it. Other than that, act upon your best judgment. I must say at this time that none of this is legal advice. This is meant for entertainment and informative purposes only. My name is Loner, and thank you for watching. Please stay safe.